We're going to go ahead and get into this first story here with Mike Johnson. So let's go through a little bit of a timeline here for those who may have forgotten. Matt Gaetz, along with a couple of others from the Freedom Caucus, decided to oust Kevin McCarthy as Speaker. So again, I like to point back to force the vote and think about some of the things that the squad members could have done in reference to that vote for Nancy Pelosi. So they did go along with that vote, the Freedom Caucus, eventually, after I think 15 rounds of voting for Kevin McCarthy. So he did get in, but not without some concessions. And even after that, along the way, Matt Gaetz decided that, you know what, this isn't going to cut it, bud. So they put together a vote to oust Kevin McCarthy. So then Kevin McCarthy was removed from the House as Speaker. Then there was this recommendation of Jim Jordan. So Jim Jordan, I don't know if we would necessarily put him as part of the Freedom Caucus, but that is someone that Matt Gaetz, I guess, likes under in reference to certain policies, But Jim Jordan, I believe there were 2 rounds to vote for him as Speaker, and he did not win. So in comes Mike Johnson, representative from Louisiana. A lot of people, I think, have never heard of him until now. So it's a very telling moment. So Mike Johnson officially has been voted in as Speaker of the House. And I want to go ahead and jump into that part here from Sky News.
Been a busy 5 o'clock hour this morning, folks, and yet we've got more breaking news and also out of the United States, Republican Mike Johnson has been elected Speaker of the US House of Representatives. The Louisiana representative garnered 220 votes, ending 3 weeks of the position's vacancy after the ousting of the former Speaker Kevin McCarthy. Mr. Johnson was backed for the position by the former President Donald Trump after serving as the Vice Chair of the House Republican Conference since 2021. And let's go live to Mike Johnson, who's addressing the House now.
Use the gifts that God has given us to serve the extraordinary people of this great country, and they deserve it. And to ensure that our republic remains standing as the great beacon of light and hope and freedom in a world that desperately needs it. It was in 1962 that our national motto, "In God We Trust," was adorned above this rostrum. And if you look at the little guide that they give tourists and constituents who come and visit the House, if you turn in there to about page 14 in the middle of that guide, it tells you the history of this. And it says very simply, these words were placed here above us. This motto was placed here as a rebuke of the Cold War era philosophy of the Soviet Union. That philosophy was Marxism and communism, which begins with the premise that there is no God. This is a critical.
Let's pause here for just a second. So one of the things I'm going to point out in reference to Mike Johnson, obviously he is against the Marxism theory, some of this because of religious reasons, etc. So I just want to paint a picture for you of who he is. He is a Trump Republican, right? So this proves that the theory that there is no way a Speaker of the House from the Republican Party was going to be someone from that MAGA wing, what this vote showed today is that that was incorrect. A lot of people may not realize this, but Mike Johnson is a Trump Republican. He was a supporter of Donald Trump. I believe he still supports Donald Trump. So that's something to keep in mind. Again, I just look back at Force the Vote and I think about the squad. And I remember people back then even saying there's no way any of these squad members or anyone who's for some of these progressive policies is actually going to take any type of leadership position, even like a Speaker of the House, right? That the Democratic Party only wants someone that is a part of the status quo and someone that is corporate, like a Nancy Pelosi. Well, I would have said the same thing about the Republican Party, hence why they wanted to put forth Kevin McCarthy, at least the majority at that point in time. But now we see that's not necessarily true, because now they have Mike Johnson in a Speaker of the House position. So what I am saying is this. This goes to show you that just because you are a few or part of the few, there are always going to be naysayers. That doesn't mean that you cannot use the few numbers that you have to get some type of leverage. So I do have to applaud Matt Gaetz and the other members of the Freedom Caucus that actually forced the vote to get what they want. Something the squad could have done. They basically took the squad strategy from them and said, well, if they're not going to do it, we're going to do it on our side. And so if I was AOC or Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, etc., I would actually be sitting back thinking to myself, like, damn, look at what we could have gotten. Look at what could have happened. And what that tells me is that it seems like, for whatever reason, that Freedom Caucus wing of the Republican Party seems to be more willing to push and to fight against the majority of the Republican Party in Congress, in the House, whereas the squad was not willing to do that in reference to the Democratic Party.
Critical distinction that is also articulated in our nation's birth certificate. We know the language well, the famous second paragraph that we used to have children memorize in school, and they don't do that so often anymore, but they should. G.K. Chesterton was the famous British philosopher and statesman, and he said one time, America is the only nation in the world that is founded upon a creed. And he said it's listed with almost theological lucidity in the Declaration of Independence. What is our creed? We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, not born equal, created equal.
And when that was written, what Mike Johnson leaves out is that they were referring to men only, and particularly white men, that own property.
And they are endowed by the same inalienable rights, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. That is the creed that has animated our nation since its founding, that has made us the great nation that we are. And we're in a time of extraordinary crisis right now. And the world needs us to be strong. They need us to remember our creed and our admonition. Turmoil and violence have rocked the Middle East and Eastern Europe. We all know it. And tensions continue to build in the Indo-Pacific. The country demands strong leadership of this body, and we must not waver. Our nation's greatest ally in the Middle East is under attack. The first bill that I'm going to bring to this floor in just a little while will be in support of our dear friend Israel, and we're overdue in getting that done.
Okay, well,
so you know where he stands on that issue, right? In reference to the issue with Israel. So just keep that in mind. Now, one of the things I wondered is, well, how does Matt Gaetz feel about this? Well, he actually was interviewed after this vote went through, and it appears that Matt Gaetz is pretty excited about this, that Mike Johnson is now the speaker. I ain't really hear any complaints from him, but take a look for yourself. Matt is happy Kevin is gone.
You going to get Mike Johnson here, it looks like here. Take me through your thinking at this moment. This obviously, is this vindication for you?
Mike Johnson is a godly man. He is a thoughtful man. He understands the complexities of policy decisions. I serve with Mike Johnson not on just one committee, but on two committees, Judiciary and House Armed Services, so he understands foreign policy and military policy. And he's been my seatmate in the Judiciary Committee for 7 years, where I've seen how his tactical proficiency can really help us uproot some of the most weaponized and really unfortunate features of the Biden government.
I mean, there's going to be key issues that he's going to have to confront that McCarthy had to confront of funding the government. Would you be okay if he has to pass a short-term spending bill in mid-November?
Well, Mike Johnson just put out a plan to get rid of the French work week here in Washington and to go to Bayou work hours, where we're here even on weekends, even late at night, passing our appropriations bills. Mike Johnson just moments ago put out his plan on government funding, and you didn't even see the word continuing resolution in that plan. We're going to fund this government. We're going to fund Israel. We're going to fund our troops and our Border Patrol, but we're not going to do it by mashing all of those issues together in one up or down vote. We're going to address them in single subject legislation.
But
Let me pause here for a second. So again, Matt Gaetz, another example of one of those people that were against the funding for Ukraine, but support the funding for Israel. And again, like I said before, that is because a lot of the politicians are in bed with certain PACs like AIPAC that support their campaigns. Now, this piece here that he brought up about the single subject bill, this was something that was proposed by Matt Gaetz that I actually thought was a good idea. Now, usually agree when it comes to legislation coming from the Republican Party, but that actually made sense. Let me explain to you what that means. Oftentimes, when there are bills that are submitted, these are multiple subject bills. I think one point in time, I think it was last year, I read a bill on the show to show you what a bill looks like and how to read a bill and what you should look for. So when I was in the debate team in high school, we had to do that. We had to read bills. We had to write bills. If you were part of the Congress debate and Lincoln Douglas debate, these are things that we had to do. We learned how to do in high school, right? So anywho, when you have a bill, there are multiple subjects in the bill. So I'll give an example with Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders voted for Joe Biden's crime bills, but Bernie says the reason why he did is because the Violence Against Women Act was a part of that bill. This is intentional, by the way. It's intentional that there are multiple subjects attached in one bill. It is a way for one party or another to get what they want passed while you get what you want, even though you may be against what they're pushing for in that bill in reference to one of the items. So it's not uncommon to see other things that are attached to a bill that you may not agree with, but there may be one thing in there that you are pushing for. So you may go ahead and vote for it anyway. The idea of a single subject bill is a great idea because now you can just focus on that one subject at hand. Also, this cuts back time that politicians have to sit there and read, which I don't think they're reading all these bills. I've heard stories about them receiving 4,000 pages for like one bill. Nobody has time to sit there and read 4,000 pages within like 48 hours with multiple bills, right? So essentially, they're not even reading all these things. A lot of times, I think what they're doing is they're just looking at the summary section of that bill and they're voting based on that. If you have a single subject bill, obviously, this will shorten the length of pages that politicians have to read. But more importantly, you are voting on that subject and that subject alone. It will also show you where politicians stand on certain issues. So I did agree with that position in reference to having single subject bills.
If he's going to have to move on a short-term spending bill, if he does, will that be enough to oust him the way you ousted McCarthy?
Well, these aren't short-term spending bills.
Yeah, but he's going to have to. He's not going to by November 17th. If he's forced to move on a short-term spending bill to keep the government open, would you push to oust him?
No, and I don't expect that that's where we're going. And he's put out a plan that's in direct contravention to that. What we're looking at with Mike Johnson is a strategy to put pressure on the Senate to take up our bills. For example, we have over $3 billion in Iron Dome money in our state and foreign ops appropriations bill that we've passed, that the Senate could take up, could amend, could conference with us at any time. And that's a better way to do this than having continuing resolutions govern our country.
So you don't think he's going to do a continuing resolution at all?
He doesn't think he's going to do a continuing resolution based on the substance of the plan he put out. I wouldn't fault Speaker Johnson if we have to have some sort of bridge to those single subject bills, but that was never in the cards with Speaker McCarthy.
But that's what McCarthy exactly did. No. He had a bridge to try to do a big, longer bill.
There's a fundamental difference. Kevin McCarthy took 6 weeks off in August, which was the tell that he was never serious about single subject bills. When you're behind schedule, you don't take a 6-week vacation unless your goal is to ultimately truncate the process and get to a continuing resolution. Mike Johnson's goal is to get to single subject spending bills. Kevin McCarthy never had that goal. He might
pause for a second. I just want to highlight the 6-week vacation for Kevin McCarthy. Again, this just goes to show you the divide between us and them. You know, our congressmen and women, I think, if I remember correctly, I think they get unlimited sick time, but I know most of you work jobs where you only get maybe 2 weeks vacation a year that's paid, or you get no paid vacation. When I was waiting tables, I didn't get paid vacation. If I took time off, that was just unpaid, right? And there are a lot of people that work in the food and service industry that are in that position. But here we have some of our congressmen being able to take 6 weeks off for vacation. I've never had a job where I received that much vacation time in 1 year. Never. So this shows you the difference between them and us.
Have said so, but like many things with Kevin McCarthy, it lacked truthfulness and sincerity.
But what if he's forced to agree to spending levels higher than, say the Fiscal Responsibility Act spending levels Would you accept that under Speaker Johnson?
Oh, look, I understand in divided government, we have to negotiate these things with Biden and with the Senate. I've always said that. The question is what platform to use for that negotiation. I don't think we should be governing by omnibus or continuing resolution. Some of my colleagues just wanted to negotiate the features of that. So I'm sure I won't get a spending level as low as I would probably like it in divided government, but I think we can have more efficacy out of our spending if we have programmatic analysis and review, and you only get that with an amendatory process on single subject bills, not one big up or down vote on funding the government.
It just sounds like you're giving him a lot more leeway that you didn't give McCarthy.
I trust Mike Johnson, and I know Mike Johnson wants to achieve the goals I wanted to achieve. I didn't trust Kevin McCarthy because he wanted to achieve the goals that K Street wanted to achieve. There's a lot of hand-wringing and bedwetting among the lobbyists and the PAC bundlers because they do not have a Speaker of the House anymore that they own and control and can manipulate. Mike Johnson answers to God and the Constitution, and it's not a question of how much leeway to give him. It's accepting the realities of divided government, but we have to change the rules of the game. That's what Mike Johnson's going to do. He's going to really prioritize our single subject bills over whatever ornament one can hang on a continuing resolution. I think that's
Okay, and we can go ahead and stop it there because then it goes off into something else. But so he apparently has more faith in Mike Johnson than he did in Kevin McCarthy. So the reporter there was like, it seems like you're giving Mike Johnson a little bit more leeway than you were willing to give to Kevin McCarthy. But then that trust factor comes in, right? So he didn't trust Kevin McCarthy, I guess, from day one. But then obviously after Kevin McCarthy became speaker, he didn't trust him even more. Now, something else I want to discuss about Mike Johnson, and we're going to show two things. The first thing is this. I saw this video floating around on Twitter of Mike Johnson talking about systemic issues in this country. And I honestly had to watch this video a couple of times because I was like, did he really just say that? Did he say what I thought he said? Now we're going to show you two sides of Mike Johnson. So first, you're going to see something good that Mike Johnson has said and Mike Johnson believes in. So let me show you the good thing first, okay? And this might surprise you because Mike Johnson is conservative, and you don't usually hear this language coming from conservatives. And then I'm going to tell you a little bit about the hypocrisy based on political parties. And then I'm going to show you something whack and crazy that Mike Johnson said. So don't get all happy about Mike after you see this video. But let's go into this one first. This is Mike Johnson talking about, well, one, his own personal experience with his children, but systemic issues in this country. Listen to this.
And I've thought often through all these ordeals over the last couple of weeks about the difference in the experiences between my two 14-year-old sons, Michael being a Black American and Jack being white, Caucasian. They have different challenges. My son Jack has an easier path. He just does. The interesting thing about both of these kids, Michael and Jack, is they're both handsome, articulate, really talented kids, gifted by God to do lots of things. But the reality is, and no one can tell me otherwise, my son Michael had a harder time than my son Jack is going to have simply because of the color of his skin. And that's a reality. It's an uncomfortable, painful one to acknowledge, but people have to recognize that's a fact.
What should we do about that?
I think that we really do need systematic change. I think we need transformative solutions. I think we're at a moment where we can begin to do more to form that more perfect union, as it says in the first line of the Constitution. And I've thought often through all these ordeals over the last couple of weeks about the difference in the experiences between my two 14-year-old sons, Michael being a Black American and Jack being white, Caucasian.
Okay, so I did not know this. Again, I was not even familiar with Dude until he won Speaker of the House. Let's just keep it real. So apparently Mike Johnson has two sons. One of them is white and one of them is Black. And he's talking about the experiences that both of his sons have based on what he has seen. Now, remember, again, Mike Johnson is conservative, but listen to this.
They have different challenges. My son Jack has an easier path. He just does. The interesting thing about both of these kids, Michael and Jack, is they're both handsome, articulate, really talented kids, gifted by God to do lots of things. But I
got to pause there for just a second. The thing about the handsome, it's always funny when people describe like their kids. Oh, I have a handsome son. I have a beautiful daughter. Like, what if your kid's just ugly? Like, do you say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Don't come for me. Don't come for me. But I think about it. What if your kid's just ugly? Like, do you say, and I have an ugly son, but they're very talented and gifted and everything? Everybody believes that their kid, their son is handsome and their daughter is beautiful. But what if you have an ugly kid and you just feel that your kid is ugly? Do you say, you know, my son is ugly, but he's talented? And let me quit. Let's continue.
Reality is, and no one can tell me otherwise. My son Michael had a harder time than my son Jack is going to have simply because of the color of his skin. And that's a reality. It's an uncomfortable, painful one to acknowledge, but people have to recognize that's a fact.
What should we do?
So here is Mike Johnson admitting that obviously that Black people and white people have different struggles in this country, and that his Black son faces greater challenges than his white son. And not only that, but he went on to say, no one can tell me otherwise. Now, let me let this play, because I'm going to talk about the hypocrisy in just a second.
Know about that.
I think that we really do need systematic change. I think we need transformative solutions. I think we're at a moment where we can begin to do more to form that more perfect union, as it says in the first line of the Constitution.
Okay, so Mike Johnson says we need systemic change in reference to racial struggles in this country. I have no problem with that statement. I'm not trying to punch down on Mike at all with that statement. But here's the hypocrisy. Why is it that all these years that leftists have been making those comments, we were called, that's woke. That's IPOL. Don't talk about identity politics. Don't bring that up in here. Don't do it. But now, like when a conservative person does it, now people on the right agree with it. Agree. See, this is the problem with partisan politics. Because naturally, it's human nature to cheer for and root for your team, even when your team may be in the wrong. Look at this as like sports teams, for example. How many of you played sports in the chat? Raise your hand. I played sports, right? When I played sports, nobody could tell me my team was wrong. We were never in the wrong. Okay. So when I played basketball in middle school. If someone on my team got a foul, oh no, you couldn't tell me. No, none of my teammates. No, we didn't do nothing wrong. That's a bad call, ref. Some of you know what I'm talking about. You watch sports, but there was nothing you could do to tell me that my team was wrong, right? So look at these political parties like teams. The Republican Party is one team. Democratic Party is another team. Obviously, if you're a part of one of these parties, you're going to, for the most part, you're going to back your team. You're going to support your team. So the problem that I have is that when you had people who were Democrats and people outside of the Democratic Party, people part of the Green Party, making those same statements that Mike Johnson just said, there was pushback. We're told it's identity politics. We're told that it's woke language. We're told that from people on the right. But now that someone on the right is saying those same things, now all of a sudden it's not identity politics. It's not woke language. So this is just, again, another problem with political parties. This is why I say abolish political parties, and you might see how people really feel, because then they're not rooting for a team. Now, that was a good statement from Mike. Now we're going to get to a whack-ass statement from Mike. Mike is cray. Let me show you this one, okay? You ready? New Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, once wrote in support for the criminalization of gay sex. No, I'm not kidding. Again, I don't know why people worried about what's happening in other people's bedrooms, but here we go. Speaker of the House Mike Johnson has a history of harsh anti-gay language from his time as an attorney for a socially conservative legal group in the mid-2000s. In editorials that ran in his local Shreveport, Louisiana paper, The Times, Johnson called homosexuality an inherently unnatural and dangerous lifestyle that would lead to legalized pedophilia and possibly even destroy the entire democratic system. And it's just really interesting to me because I don't know why some people think that if someone is a part of the LGBTQ community, that they're living a dangerous lifestyle. Like, I don't know. It's just interesting. And in another editorial he wrote, your race, creed, and sex are what you are, while homosexuality and cross-dressing are things you do. This is a free country, but we don't give special protections for every person's bizarre choices. So this is another thing that I want to point to. Again, this belief that some people have that it's a choice. It's not a choice. At the time, Johnson was an attorney and spokesman for Alliance Defense Fund, known today as Alliance Defending Freedom, where he also authored his opposition to the Supreme Court ruling in Lawrence versus Texas, which overturned state laws that criminalize homosexual activity between consenting adults. So to this, I have to ask, why do you care what people do in their bedroom? Why do you care? Like, I don't know about you guys, but I don't. What are you looking for, Mike? What's happening? Went on to say, states have many legitimate grounds to prescribe same-sex deviant sexual intercourse. Johnson wrote in a July 2003 op-ed calling it a public health concern. By closing these bedroom doors, they have opened a Pandora's box. Oh, man. Now Johnson is the Speaker of the House at a time when a majority of Americans are strongly supportive of gay rights. In the House Republican conference voting for the Speaker nominee, Tom Emmer, who initially beat out Johnson, came under fire from conservatives for voting to codify same-sex marriage in 2022. So Tom Emmer was one of the Republicans that voted in support of codifying it. Johnson, according to Punchbowl News, reportedly made an issue of Emmer's vote. John voted against the bill. In 2022, Johnson also introduced a bill that some described as a national version of what critics have called Florida's Don't Say Gay bill. In the mid-2000s, Johnson's anti-gay rhetoric was harsh. In September 2004, Johnson wrote in support of a Louisiana amendment banning same-sex marriage, saying it could lead to people marrying their pets. See, this is the kind of stuff some people think. They think that if someone's a part of the LGBTQ community, they're just out there living like this wild ass lifestyle. This is what some people really believe. So he thought people would marry their pets. These are the kind of things that we have to point out. So again, he believes that's unnatural, yada, yada. He is conservative, but this whole piece here where he actually wanted to criminalize gay sex is very concerning and just weird. Again, like I said, why are you worried about what people are doing in the bedroom? Why? Go get some, Mike. Go get some. That's all I gotta say. Go get some. I really think a lot of times it's people who are sexually repressed. I really do. So they're focused on what other people are doing, But it is official. Mike Johnson is now officially the Speaker of House. So we should see how it goes. Gonna go to some of the comments here. Emily says MAGA's force the vote worked. I know. It's bothersome, I think, because I just think about what we could have had, if the squad would have gone through with it. Thank you for the super chat, Roger. Wow, they elected Stephen Colbert as Speaker. He does kind of look like Stephen Colbert. A. Hill says you can't get your pick if you follow the majority. There you go. Hedges Gospel. Oh my God, Sabby, that Sublime t-shirt. Where are more like you out there? Okay, so you want to know the story about this t-shirt? There's a quick story about this t-shirt. Ready for it? Okay. I like band t-shirts. I think I have a couple more. I don't know. I gotta go through my clothes. But I like band t-shirts, but I don't like paying a lot of money for band t-shirts. And if you go to places like Spencer's, which does have those t-shirts, Newbury Comics, they have them too. They're expensive. But anyway, I found this at Forever 21. But I loved Sublime. Like Sublime is one of my favorite bands. But the thing is that today is laundry day. I have to do laundry, and I have Shama Swan's coming on tomorrow night. So I really make sure I get like at least a load done, but it's laundry day. That's why I got on a t-shirt. Thank you for the super chat, Roger. Can't stop laughing. Sounds like saying my Johnson. Thank you for this, Roger. Sab, we talked about this applying to CBIs as well. Yes, we did. Thank you for the super chat, Barack Obama them. Vivek is a snake. And thank you for this one as well. Do these politicians work for Israel or the USA? Thank you for the super chat, 007 Angelo. Look up Rodney Dangerfield, ugly kid joke, funny AF. Oh, yeah. Okay, I have to look that up. Rodney Dangerfield is hilarious. Terry says, Sabby, where's your Aerosmith t-shirt? I've never had an Aerosmith t-shirt. I had an AC/DC t-shirt. I had a Run DMC t-shirt. My sister took the Run DMC t-shirt. She might have taken the AC/DC t. You know what? I need to contact. I bet you that's where some of my shirts went. I bet you. Thank you for the super chat, Nambians. My Shriners Hall in Dorchester, Massachusetts is trying to organize a peace rally and would love your support. Please hit me up. Nambians, please send me an email. Email me, please. My email address is in the description of all my videos. Take the comment on Rockfin, and then we'll go to the next story. Thank you for the tip on Rockfin, Roger. Oh, look, it's the COVID mask tan line man again. Anyway, Sab, I watched Trump brag about what he was going to do for the black man. I couldn't hear enough firsthand about what Trump was going to do for the black man. You just watch. This is nothing new. They just want someone on their team to give them a win. Sab, if there is any electorate that is imperative to register Indy, it's black, especially freedmen. Register independent, guys. Register independent.